What happens when a prince walks onto morning television thinking he owns the place? In just 36 seconds, one comment turned a friendly interview into the most explosive exit in talk show history. Before we dive into this jaw-dropping moment, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now because we're pulling back the curtain on royalty's dark side. We're exposing entitled celebrities and their shocking behavior the cameras never showed you. We've got the raw footage they don't want you to see, and you won't want to miss a single reveal. Drop a comment below with your thoughts on this outrageous behavior because you're not going to believe what happened next. The morning started like any other at the Good Morning America studio. Michael Strahan sat in his chair, ready to conduct what everyone assumed would be a standard celebrity interview. The guest? Prince Harry. The lights were bright, the cameras were rolling, and millions of viewers across America were tuning in with their morning coffee, expecting the usual polite conversation about charity work and royal life. But what they got instead was something nobody could have predicted. Michael Strahan greeted his guest with that warm smile he's famous for. "Welcome to Good Morning America. It's great to have you here this morning," Michael said, extending his hand for a handshake. The prince took his seat, and right from the start, something felt different. There was a tension in the air that even viewers at home could sense through their television screens. Michael started with a simple question. "So, let's talk about your recent projects. You've been involved in quite a few initiatives lately. What's been keeping you busy?" The prince shifted in his seat. "Well, Michael, I think the better question is what hasn't been keeping me busy. Unlike some people who just read off teleprompters all day, I'm actually out there making a real difference in the world." The studio went quiet. You could hear the uncomfortable shuffling of the crew behind the cameras. Michael, ever the professional, kept his composure and smiled. "That's great. I'm sure our viewers would love to hear more about the specific work you're doing." But instead of answering the question, the prince leaned back in his chair with a smirk. "You know what's interesting, Michael? People like you get paid millions to sit in a comfortable chair and ask questions someone else wrote for you. Meanwhile, people like me are born into actual responsibility. It's quite different." Michael's smile remained, but his eyes showed a flicker of surprise. "Well, I think many people work very hard in many different ways. Now, you mentioned some charitable work. Can you tell us about that?" The prince waved his hand dismissively. "Charitable work, yes. But let's be honest here. When I do charity work, it actually matters. When someone with a real title, a real legacy shows up, people pay attention. It's not the same as some football player turned morning show host trying to seem relevant." The camera caught Michael's jaw tightening ever so slightly, but his professionalism never wavered. "I respect your commitment to your causes. Let's talk about your family for a moment. How are things on that front?" This question seemed to irritate the prince even more. How are things? How are things? Michael, do you even prepare for these interviews? Or do you just show up and hope for the best? These questions are beneath someone of my stature. I came here expecting actual journalism, not this surface-level nonsense. Michael took a breath, his voice remaining calm and steady. "I apologize if the questions aren't what you expected. Why don't you tell our audience what you would like to discuss? What message do you want to share with them this morning?" The prince laughed, but it wasn't a friendly laugh. It was condescending, sharp. "What I'd like to discuss is why American television has become so dumbed down. In Britain, our broadcasters have standards. Here, you put anyone with a recognizable face on television and call it journalism. It's embarrassing, really." The crew members looked at each other nervously. This was live television, and things were spiraling quickly. Michael maintained his composure, his voice still professional and measured. "I'm sorry you feel that way. We actually have a team of very talented journalists here at Good Morning America who work incredibly hard every single day to bring quality news and interviews to our viewers." But the prince wasn't finished. "A team? Is that what you call them? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you need all the help you can get. Tell me, Michael, how does it feel to know that your biggest accomplishment is playing a game with a ball? At least, I was born with purpose." That comment landed like a bomb in the studio. Michael's face remained calm, but something shifted in his demeanor. "I'm proud of my career in football, and I'm proud of the work I do here. Every person's journey is different, and every person's contribution matters. That includes our crew, our journalists, and yes, even former athletes who work hard to connect with audiences every single day." The prince rolled his eyes. "Connect with audiences? Is that what we're calling it now? I think the word you're looking for is pander. You pander to the masses because that's what keeps your paycheck coming. I don't need to do that. I don't need to pretend to care about what everyday people think because my position speaks for itself." Michael shifted forward in his chair, his voice still controlled but with a new firmness. "With all due respect, I think everyday people are exactly who we should care about. They're the ones watching this show. They're the ones who support the work we all do, whether that's journalism, charity, or public service." The prince scoffed. "Everyday people? You mean the people who sit at home watching television instead of actually doing something with their lives? Those are your heroes, Michael? How wonderfully pedestrian of you." There was an audible gasp from someone off camera. Michael's co-hosts, sitting nearby, looked stunned. But Michael himself remained the picture of grace under pressure. "I think people who work hard, raise their families, and contribute to their communities in their own ways are absolutely worthy of respect. Not everyone is born into privilege, and that doesn't make their lives less valuable." This comment seemed to strike a nerve with the prince. His face flushed red. "Privilege? You want to talk about privilege? Let me tell you about privilege, Michael. Privilege is becoming a millionaire because you can catch a ball. Privilege is getting a television job because of your celebrity status, not because of your intellect or your credentials. Don't you dare lecture me about privilege when you've benefited from it your entire career." Michael's voice remained steady, though firmer now. "I've worked for everything I have. I've earned my place through dedication, hard work, and yes, talent. But I've never dismissed others or looked down on people because their path was different from mine. That's not what leadership looks like." The prince stood up slightly from his chair, his voice rising. "Leadership? You're going to tell me about leadership? I come from a lineage of leaders. My family has shaped history. What has your family done? What legacy are you leaving behind besides mediocre morning television?" The studio fell into a heavy silence. Michael stood up as well, his tall frame matching the prince's energy, but his voice remaining controlled. "My legacy is treating people with respect. It's showing up every day and doing my job with integrity. It's using my platform to uplift others, not tear them down. And right now, I'm going to ask you politely to either conduct this interview with basic human decency or we're going to end things here." The prince's eyes widened in disbelief. "You're threatening me? Do you know who I am? Do you understand what kind of consequences there will be for disrespecting someone of my position?" Michael stood firm. "I know exactly who you are, and I know that being respectful is something everyone should do, regardless of their title or background. This isn't about disrespect. This is about having a civil conversation, which you seem unwilling to do." The prince pointed his finger at Michael. "Civil? You want civil? How about this for civil? You are nothing more than a puppet reading lines for a paycheck. You have no real power, no real influence. You're a placeholder, a seat warmer, until someone more interesting comes along. And the fact that you think you can speak to me this way shows just how delusional American television has made you." Michael's jaw clenched, but when he spoke, his words were measured and clear. "I'm going to stop you right there. We've tried to have a respectful conversation this morning. I've given you multiple opportunities to share your message, to talk about your work, to connect with our audience. Instead, you've chosen to insult me, insult our team, and insult the millions of people watching at home. That's not acceptable." The prince threw his hands up. "Of course you're playing the victim now. That's what people like you do, isn't it? The moment someone tells you the truth, the moment someone doesn't bow down to your inflated ego, you cry foul. It's pathetic." Michael took a deep breath, and when he spoke next, his voice carried the weight of someone who had reached their limit. "This interview is over. We've tried to be gracious hosts, but I will not sit here and allow you to demean the people who work on this show or the people who watch it. We're done." The prince laughed mockingly. "You're ending the interview? You? You don't have the authority to end this. I decide when this interview is over, not some washed-up athlete playing journalist." Michael gestured to someone off camera. "Actually, this is our show, and we absolutely have the authority to end this interview. I'm going to have to ask you to leave." The prince's face turned even redder. "You're kicking me out? Do you have any idea what kind of scandal this will cause? Do you know what this will do to your career? I will make sure everyone knows how disrespectful you've been. I'll tell the world about this." Michael remained calm, his professionalism never breaking. "You're welcome to tell whatever version of events you'd like, but right now, this conversation is over, and I'm asking you to leave the set." The prince stood up fully now, his voice getting louder. "This is outrageous. This is absolutely outrageous. You can't treat me this way. I'm a prince. I have rights. I have standing. You're nobody compared to me." Michael's voice remained steady. Every person has value and deserves respect, and that includes our crew, our staff, and our viewers. When you can't provide that basic level of human decency, then yes, I can ask you to leave. And I am asking you to leave. The prince grabbed the microphone off his lapel and threw it onto the desk. Fine. I don't need this. I don't need you. I don't need any of this American circus. You want to know what your problem is, Michael? You actually believe you matter. You actually think what you do here has meaning. But it doesn't. You're forgettable. This show is forgettable. And in a week, nobody will even remember this happened because nobody actually cares what you have to say. Michael picked up the discarded microphone calmly and set it aside properly. I hope you find what you're looking for, but it won't be here. Not with that attitude. Security will see you out. The prince looked around wildly. Security? You're calling security on me? This is insane. You're all insane. This country has lost its mind. No wonder everything is falling apart here when you treat people of actual importance like this. Two security personnel appeared from the side of the set, their presence professional but firm. Michael addressed them quietly. Please escort our guest out of the building. The prince turned back to Michael one last time, his voice dripping with venom. You've made a huge mistake today. Huge. You have no idea who you're dealing with. I'm going to make sure everyone knows what happened here. I'm going to make sure your career is finished. Michael looked directly at him, his voice unwavering. My career will be just fine. I stand by everything I said today, and I'd make the same decision again. Goodbye. As security began to guide the prince away from the set, he continued to shout, This is not over, Michael. You hear me? This is not over. You can't just dismiss me like this. I'm a prince. I deserve respect. I demand respect. Michael turned to the camera, his composure fully intact despite everything that had just transpired. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. The moment the camera cut, the entire studio erupted into chaos. Producers were running around trying to figure out what to do next. Crew members were talking rapidly to each other, their faces showing a mix of shock and disbelief. But Michael just stood there, breathing steadily, his professionalism never cracking even for a second. One of the producers ran up to him. Michael, are you okay? That was insane. I've never seen anything like that in all my years in television. Michael nodded slowly. I'm fine. We did the right thing. Nobody gets to come on this show and disrespect our team or our viewers like that. I don't care what title they have. Another crew member approached, clearly shaken. Do you think there will be backlash? I mean, he's a prince. This could become a huge story. Michael looked around at his team, at the people who work so hard every single day to make the show possible. If there's backlash, we'll handle it together. But I'm not going to apologize for standing up for all of you and for what's right. Everyone deserves to be treated with dignity, and that includes every single person in this studio. The prince's voice could still be heard in the distance as security escorted him through the building. You'll regret this. All of you will regret this. I'll make sure of it. Do you know who my family is? Do you know what we're capable of? Michael shook his head and turned to his co-hosts. Let's regroup and figure out what we're doing for the rest of the show. We've got viewers counting on us to get back out there and give them the quality content they deserve. His co-host approached him with concern in her eyes. Michael, that took a lot of courage. Not many people would have stood up to him like that, especially on live television. Michael gave a small smile. It's not about courage. It's about knowing your worth and knowing the worth of everyone around you. The moment we start accepting that kind of behavior, the moment we let people treat us poorly just because of their status or title, that's when we lose what makes us who we are. From another part of the building, the prince's complaints continued to echo. This is America's problem right here. No respect for tradition, no respect for hierarchy, no respect for anything that matters. You people are classless, absolutely classless. A production assistant whispered to Michael. He's still going. Security is having trouble getting him to actually leave the building. He keeps stopping to yell at people. Michael sighed. Just make sure everyone stays professional. Don't engage with him. Let security do their job, and let's focus on getting back to what we do best. The makeup artist came over to check on Michael, touching up his appearance for when they went back on air. You handled that incredibly well. I don't know how you stayed so calm. I was shaking just watching it. Michael's voice was gentle. When someone is trying to get a reaction out of you, the best thing you can do is stay calm. Don't let them pull you down to their level. Respond with dignity, set your boundaries, and stick to them. That's all I did. Another producer approached with an update. Michael, the phone lines are lighting up. Viewers are calling in. Social media is exploding. Everyone wants to know what just happened. Michael nodded. We'll address it when we come back from break. We'll be honest with our audience. They saw what happened. They heard what was said. We're not going to sugarcoat it or pretend it was something it wasn't. His co-host touched his arm supportively. You did the right thing. Anyone watching could see that you gave him every opportunity to turn things around. He made his choice. Finally, after what felt like an eternity but was probably only a few minutes, the building fell quiet. Security had successfully removed the prince from the premises. The studio began to settle back into its normal rhythm. Though everyone was still buzzing with adrenaline from what had just occurred, Michael took a moment to address his team before going back on air. I want to say something to all of you. What you witnessed today was unacceptable behavior from a guest. But what I also witnessed was a team of consummate professionals who kept their cool, did their jobs, and maintained their dignity throughout an incredibly difficult situation. I'm proud to work with every single one of you. The crew broke into spontaneous applause. It wasn't loud or dramatic, but it was heartfelt. These were people who had just watched their host stand up not just for himself, but for all of them. That meant something. The stage manager gave the countdown. We're back in 30 seconds, everyone. Let's pull it together. Michael took his seat again, straightened his jacket, and prepared to face the cameras once more. His co-hosts took their positions beside him, ready to support him through whatever came next. As the camera light turned red, indicating they were back on air, Michael looked directly into the lens. His voice was steady, honest, and clear. Welcome back to Good Morning America. I want to address what you all just witnessed. We had a guest on our show this morning who, unfortunately, was unable to conduct himself in a respectful manner. After multiple attempts to have a civil conversation, we made the decision to end the interview and ask him to leave our set. He paused, letting his words sink in. We believe strongly in treating every guest with respect and giving them a platform to share their story. But we also believe that respect goes both ways. Our team works incredibly hard to bring you quality programming every single day, and our viewers deserve to be spoken to with dignity and consideration. When those standards aren't met, we will always choose to stand up for what's right. Michael's co-host added her support. Absolutely. And we appreciate all of you at home for sticking with us through that difficult moment. We have a great show planned for the rest of the morning, so let's move forward together. Michael smiled, that genuine warmth returning to his face. Now, coming up next, we have an incredible story about a teacher who started a program that's changing lives in her community. That's the kind of story we love to share here, and we think you're going to be inspired by what she has to say. As they transitioned to the next segment, Michael felt a sense of calm wash over him. He had made the right call. He had stood up for his team, for his viewers, and for the basic principles of respect and decency that should guide every interaction. Yes, it had been uncomfortable. Yes, it had been dramatic. But sometimes doing the right thing requires you to stand firm in the face of difficulty. The rest of the show proceeded smoothly, though the energy in the studio remained charged. Every commercial break brought more updates about the response from viewers, almost all of it supportive. People were praising Michael for his handling of the situation, for his professionalism, and for his willingness to set boundaries even with someone of high status. When the show finally wrapped for the day, Michael sat in his dressing room for a moment alone. He thought about what had transpired, replaying the conversation in his mind. Had he handled it perfectly? Maybe not. Could he have done anything differently? Perhaps. But at the end of the day, he had stayed true to his values, and that was what mattered most. A knock on his door interrupted his thoughts. Come in, he called. It was one of the youngest members of the production team, an intern who had only been with the show for a few weeks. Mr. Strahan, I just wanted to say thank you. What you did today, standing up like that, it meant a lot to all of us, especially those of us who are just starting out in this industry. It showed us that you don't have to accept being treated poorly, no matter who the person is. Michael smiled warmly at the young intern. Thank you for saying that. And remember, respect isn't something you have to earn. It's something everyone deserves from the start. Don't ever let anyone make you feel like you're worth less because of your position or your background. Your voice matters just as much as anyone else's. The intern nodded, clearly moved by the words. I'll remember that. Thank you, sir. As the intern left, Michael gathered his things and prepared to head home. It had been an extraordinary morning, one that would likely be talked about for a long time. But as he walked out of the studio and into the bright daylight, he felt at peace with how everything had unfolded. He had shown up, done his job with integrity, treated people with respect, and stood firm when those values were challenged. That was all anyone could really ask of themselves. The prince had made his choices, and those choices had consequences. But Michael had made his choices too, and he could stand behind every single one of them. The security guard at the exit nodded to Michael as he passed. "Quite a morning, Mr. Strahan," Michael chuckled. "That's one way to put it. Have a good rest of your day." "You too, sir. And for what it's worth, you handled that situation with real class. Made all of us proud to work here." Michael thanked him and stepped out into the world, ready to face whatever came next. Because at the end of the day, that's what professionalism looks like. It's not about never facing difficult situations. It's about how you handle yourself when those situations arise. It's about knowing your worth, respecting others, and having the courage to set boundaries when necessary. The morning had started with the promise of a routine interview. It had turned into something nobody could have predicted, but through it all, Michael Strahan had shown exactly what it means to be a true professional, a leader, and someone who understands that respect isn't determined by titles or birthright. It's earned through actions, through how you treat others, and through your willingness to stand up for what's right, even when it's difficult. And that's a lesson worth remembering. Whether you're hosting a morning show or simply trying to navigate your own life with integrity and grace,